The question that comes next is a is clot is blood clot a permanent structure? And the answer is no. No, blood clot doesn't remain there forever. So as soon as the physical integrity of the damaged site is restored, the clot is dissolved. You're getting the point. So your body has got an amazing capacity. It can synthesize, resynthesize different types of cells, tissue types. Okay. So a healing process starts, and as soon as the body is, restores the physical integrity at the site of the damage, at the site of the wound, this clot is dissolved. This clot is no longer there, right? So these two things are interlinked. Okay, because unless the clot is dissolved, the site cannot be, what you can say, the damage cannot be, the damaged site cannot be restored. So these two things are very closely interlinked. Okay, closely interlinked. So what causes the clot to dissolve? The clot hydrolysis has been found to be a very organized activity. It's a highly organized activity. So the fibrin clot it is dissolved by catalytic proteolysis by a protease called plasmin. So what do you get? You get fibrin peptides. So a protease called plasmin, it will cleave bonds in the triple helical coiled coil region of the fibrinogen monomers or fibrin monomers, and cutting them into smaller peptides called fibrin peptides. Let me show it to you in a different manner. So yesterday we saw the structure of the fibrinogen, something like this. There are three globular regions, right? And these three globular heads are joined by these two rods. These rods have a triple helical, triple stranded coiled coil structure. Okay, so plasmin will hydrolyze bonds in these regions, peptide bonds in these regions. Okay, so you can understand now. So once the peptide bonds are broken in the rod region, then you will have smaller peptides like this. Like this. These are called as fibrin peptides. Okay. So the question that comes next is, where do you get this plasmin from? This plasmin is generated by an inactive precursor called plasminogen. It is converted to plasmin. Okay, and see the importance. The timing is very crucial. When the damaged site is just about to be restored, at that time only this plasminogen should be converted to plasmin. Okay, and this conversion takes place in presence of tissue plasminogen activator, TPA, tissue plasminogen activator, TPA, tissue plasminogen activator. So this tissue plasminogen activator will trigger the conversion of plasminogen to plasmin at an opportune time, at an appropriate time. When the damaged site, the site of wound is just about to be restored, healing is just about to be completed, at that time this tissue plasminogen activator will be triggered and it will convert fibrinogen into plasmin. Okay, this tissue plasminogen activator, it is a 72 kilodalton protein. 72 kilodalton protein, and it has got different types of domains. The important domains I am writing over here. It has got a finger domain in its structure. It has got a growth factor domain. It has got Kringle domain. There are two of them, Kringle domain, and it has got a protease domain. Okay, so basically this TPA is a serine protease. But it has got number of other domains also in its structure. So it has got a protease domain. So this protease will convert, proteolytically convert, catalytically convert plasminogen, an inactive precursor of plasmin, to plasmin, right? And then this plasmin will convert fibrin monomers into fibrin peptides, and that is how the clot will be dissolved. This TPA gene for TPA, 72 kilodalton protein, has been isolated, cloned, and expressed in cultured mammalian cells. Okay, so using recombinant DNA technology, now we are able to produce, we are able to synthesize this tissue plasminogen activator in the laboratory. Okay, this gene has been isolated, it has been cloned and expressed in cultured mammalian cells, and these cells, they will produce TPA, which is purified, and it has saved several thousand lives by when you administer TPA is administered within an hour of internal clot formation. Okay, so whenever there is an internal clot formation, particularly in the arteries which supply blood to the heart, then it is an emergency. And under such condition, if this TPA injection is given, the TPA which has been synthesized by recombinant DNA technology is available in the market. So if it is given within an hour, it is capable of dissolving that clot and restoring the blood flow to that particular organ, for example, to the heart. So that is how it saves. It's a life-saving molecule. It has already saved several thousand lives this particular way. So that is how the science has come. Science is being exploited therapeutically. This TPA gene has been isolated, it has been cloned, and it has been expressed in mammalian cultured mammalian cells. And whatever is synthesized by those cultured cells has been purified. TPA has been purified from it, and it gives wonderful results, right? Now, the second thing that we will be discussing today is there is a disease called hemophilia. So what is this hemophilia? It is the best known clotting defect. It is transmitted as a sex-linked recessive character. It is linked to X chromosome. And heterozygous females are asymptomatic carriers of this disease, right? And you know by this time that it is caused by the deficiency of factor 8. This factor 8, it is not a protease. But what does it do? The active form of factor 8, helps in conversion of 10 to 10A. And this 10A is a prothrombin activator. It's a prothrombin activator. So basically, when factor 8 is not there, okay, factor 8 is also called as anti-hemophilic factor. So in the absence of factor 8, intrinsic pathway is severely impaired. Is severely affected. Intrinsic pathway is severely affected. You know what is intrinsic pathway? There are two ways by which you can generate PTA or activated factor 10. One is intrinsic pathway and the second one is an extrinsic pathway. So factor 8 participate in intrinsic pathway. So in the absence of factor 8, intrinsic pathway is severely affected, and the person who has a deficiency of factor 8A or where the factor 8A is not fully active, it doesn't have full activity, that those persons will suffer uh, by this particular condition where the blood doesn't get radially, blood doesn't form clots radially. Clots will not be formed radially. Okay, and those persons will have the chances of excessive bleeding because their clot will not be formed at the site of the wound, and that condition is called as hemophilia, right? So it's a genetic disorder. It is linked to the sex chromosome, particularly the X chromosome, and heterozygous females are carriers of this particular disease. Queen Victoria is a good example of a carrier, a female carrying this particular disorder. So this factor 8, it's a large protein, 330 kilodalton. And it is present in very small quantities. It is present in only microgram quantities, microgram per ml. Very small quantities it is present in the blood. So earlier, hemophilics, those who are suffering from hemophilics used to be treated by providing plasma concentrates. Now, plasma would be concentrated, plasma containing factor 8 from normal person, it will be concentrated. And since it is present in very small quantity, therefore you need to concentrate because you need to provide large quantities of the plasma so that you have sufficient quantity of this factor 8 in the recipient. So plasma concentrate used to be given to hemophilics so that they can have normal clotting. And because of this, there were lots of risks because whenever you have blood transfusion, there is always a chance of transmission of viral infections. Hepatitis, AIDS, etc. Okay. And second, you can imagine, because the concentration is so low, you need large quantities of plasma. Okay, so but now with the advent of recombinant DNA technology, what has happened? This 182 kilobase pair gene of factor 8 has been isolated, cloned, and expressed. It has been expressed in hamster cell line. Hamster cell lines. So now you have recombinant factor 8A available. Recombinant factor 8 protein is available, and hemophilics can be given this recombinant factor 8 protein, and they don't have to be given this plasma concentrates. So again, second example where science has been gainfully exploited in therapeutics. Okay. Now the last thing in this, or second last thing in this, is what is called as thrombosis and hemorrhage. So thrombosis means clot formation, and hemorrhage means bleeding. Okay, so this clot formation, it is so important, but it is important only at the site of the wound. Clot formation at the site of wound is important. Internal clot formation in your body, that closed blood vascular system, clot formation can have very serious consequences. That is called as thrombosis. Internal clot formation is called as thrombosis. So we don't want that. What we want a rapid clot formation at the site of the wound. But we really don't want formation of clot in the body, in the internal circulation, blood vascular system, right? So recently, in this pandemic, after Corona also, you must have seen, you must have read that this clot formation, risk of internal clot formation increases. So patients who have had Corona, they are given blood thinners, tablets of which keeps the blood in thin form, fluid form, right? Blood thinners they are called as. So you don't want internal clot formation, which is called as thrombosis, which can have serious consequences, right? At the same time, you want efficient clot formation at the site of wound, at the site of cut, because excessive bleeding can be stopped. So what does it mean? It means that the entire clotting process or mechanism that we have just studied should be very precisely monitored, precisely regulated. Right? Because unless it is precisely regulated, you always have, because it has to maintain a very delicate balance between thrombosis and hemorrhage. Right? A very delicate balance is there. So it has to maintain all the time this delicate balance. If this balance is lost, then you always have a chance of either formation of clot, internal clots, or you have a chance where you have excessive bleeding. So we don't want either of them. Okay. So this entire clotting process is precisely regulated. Let me tell you what are the mechanism by which this clotting process is regulated. So how this is regulated? So there are various factors. One is that these activated clotting factors are short-lived. Short-lived. Okay, so they are very rapidly, you know, uh, digested. They are rapidly hydrolyzed. Okay, uh, they don't remain in the active form for the large period of time. Factor 5A and 8A, they are digested by a protease called protein C. A protease. Okay, this protein C, it is activated by thrombin. So thrombin does a dual job. What does it do? It converts fibrinogen to fibrin and it activates protein C. Right? Now, in addition to this, there are specific inhibitors of clotting factors. So in the blood, besides the clotting factors, you have several inhibitors of the clotting factor. One very important and the one which has been very thoroughly studied is called as antithrombin 3. It's a clotting factor inhibitor, antithrombin 3. Right? What does it do? As the name suggests, it inactivates thrombin. So you know the crucial role thrombin plays in clotting. Because thrombin is not there, fibrinogen will not be converted to fibrin. So antithrombin 3, one of the clotting factor inhibitors present in the blood, will be inactivating thrombin. In addition to this, it also inhibits other serine proteases of the cascade. And what are the serine proteases? You know, you have factor 9, 9A, 10A, 11A, and 12A. These are all serine proteases of the cascade, which participate in both primarily in the intrinsic pathway. So all of them will be inactivated by antithrombin 3. Antithrombin 3 is a serpine. Serpine नया term use हो रहा है, serpine. Serpine is the name of a protease inhibitor family. A family of protease inhibitors. Serpine is the name of a family of protease inhibitors. So antithrombin 3, one of the clotting factors, and there are others also, but this antithrombin 3 has been the most important and has been, investigated rather deeply. So this is the factor which is responsible for inhibiting thrombin. So that is how, within the body it is ensured that you don't have unnecessary clot formation. This antithrombin 3, it is activated by heparin also. So that is how, it is ensured that, you don't have clot formation within the body, within the blood vascular system, because any clot formation, small or big, is going to have very serious consequences, because it will block the blood flow to that particular organ to which that artery is supplying blood, right? So a very precise regulation of clotting process, clotting mechanism uh, is there, so that you don't have internal clots. Clots are formed and formed very rapidly at the site of wounds only. And the last thing that I'll be discussing in this lecture is what is the difference between blood, plasma, and serum. So blood is, now, plasma plus blood cells. Okay. So what is plasma? That also, we have discussed it, that, when you keep the blood in a glass tube and just leave it for some time, what happens? Automatically cells will settle down. Okay. And there will be a clear straw-colored fluid that is called as plasma. You have to ensure that you have an anticoagulant. And what are the anticoagulant? The natural anticoagulant is heparin. And the artificial anticoagulants are sodium citrate, sodium oxalate, sodium aditate. These are the artificial anticoagulants. What do? These artificial anticoagulants, they will chelate calcium. So calcium will not be available, and you know the importance of calcium in the clotting process. So that is how they will keep the blood in a fluid form. They will not allow clotting. So this glass tube, in its wall contain these anticoagulant. You make a solution of this anticoagulant and then allow it to dry. You put the tubes in the oven. So this anticoagulants, they are uniformly spread on the internal walls of the glass tube. So they will keep the blood in fluid form. They will not allow clot formation. And over a period of time, the cells will settle down, or you can accelerate this process by centrifuging it. So cells will settle down, and what remains is plasma. Okay. What is serum? So you do the same experiment. You take the blood in a glass tube, but this time there is no anticoagulant here. Okay. There is no anticoagulant. These anticoagulants are not there. You have not applied any anticoagulant solution there. Right? So what is going to happen? This blood will, as soon as it comes in contact with the glass unphysiological surface, clotting will be initiated, and over a period of time, very rapidly, you will find that on the lower part there is a blood clot, and what remains upstream is this straw-colored fluid, something similar to what we saw in case of plasma. This is called a serum. This is called a serum. So what has happened? What is the difference between plasma and serum? Both looks almost alike, same. Okay. The difference is that serum doesn't have fibrinogen. Serum doesn't have fibrinogen. Okay. Plasma minus fibrinogen is serum. Plasma contains plasma proteins, albumin, globulin, and fibrinogen. So of these three types of proteins, fibrinogen has been utilized in this clotting process. Clot is there, so fibrinogen has been utilized. So serum, it doesn't have fibrinogen, protein fibrinogen. So that is the minor difference, but important difference between plasma and serum. What is serum? Serum is defibrinogenated plasma. Serum is defibrinogenated plasma. If you want, you can write down. Minus fibrinogen. So if you have to collect serum, then what do? You collect the blood in a glass vial or a glass tube which doesn't contain any type of anticoagulant, so that blood can clot, because only during clotting, the fibrinogen will be utilized. So it is consumed during the clotting process. So fibrinogen will no longer be there in the upper fluid. So this is called a serum. And if you have to isolate plasma, what do? You take glass tubes or vials which contain, on their interior walls, anticoagulants, sodium citrate, a mixture of sodium citrate, sodium oxalate, or sodium editate. Okay, so that blood doesn't form a clot. Over a period of time, slowly, cells will settle down because of gravity. This process can be accelerated by centrifuging it, and what remains here, this is called as plasma. It contains all three types of proteins. It contains albumin, it contains globulins, and it contains fibrinogen also. Whereas in case of serum, it contains only albumin and globulins. So this is the difference between, this is how you describe what is blood, what is plasma, and what is serum. Very important from the, Viva point of view. So that's all I have in this particular lecture. Thank you very much.